On the 12th floor of Sterling Heights Hospital, 15 of the nation's best doctors surrounded a dying billionaire, and not one of them knew why his body was shutting down. Monitors screamed, millions of dollars worth of expertise failed, and behind the glass stood a boy no one wanted to see, the disabled son of a black security guard. Moments earlier, a nurse had thrown his notebook down the hall, calling him trash. Yet within those torn pages was the truth that could save the man's life. 3 words were all he needed to say, words that would expose everything the hospital had chosen to ignore. But first, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment below from which city you are watching this video. Hours before the chaos erupted on the 12th floor, the hospital was split between 2 worlds. Above, crystal chandeliers glittered over $60,000, a ticket Christmas gala. Champagne flowed, designer gowns shimmered, and billionaire Charles Whitfield, polished and smiling in a $12,000 suit, promised a $12 million donation to pediatric research. Cameras flashed as he declared that every child deserves a fighting chance at life. The applause thundered, rehearsed and hollow. No one there knew that earlier that day he'd personally killed research into 3 rare diseases, not enough patients, not enough profit. 12 floors below that glittering lie, a boy named Benjamin Turner sat in the damp basement beside his father, Gerald, a night shift security guard. The air smelled of burnt coffee and mold, the scent of forgotten people. Benjamin was only 13, autistic, and endlessly curious. His world was a notebook filled with medical diagrams and notes scavenged from hospital trash bins, everything he'd been teaching himself since his mother's death 3 years ago. When a faint chemical odor drifted through the ventilation system, Benjamin's senses sharpened. He recognized it instantly, a sweet, wrong scent that carried memory and pain. "Someone upstairs is very ill," he whispered to his father. His tone wasn't dramatic, it was certain. Gerald tried to reason with him, but Benjamin only flipped open his notebook to the same page he'd studied for days: metabolic acidosis. Above them, Charles Whitfield was beginning to feel unwell, dismissing the nausea as stress. By the time the gala lights dimmed, his stomach burned, his body trembled, and panic quietly replaced pride. What neither man knew, the billionaire on the stage and the boy in the basement, was that their lives were already connected by tragedy, and within hours, fate would bring them face to face. By 11:15 p.m., the billionaire's discomfort had become agony. Sharp waves tore through his abdomen, his pulse erratic and weak. The laughter from the gala faded into frantic voices as his body collapsed under the weight of an unseen disease. 15 of the hospital's top doctors surrounded him, trading commands and diagnoses that grew more panicked with every passing second. None of them could explain why their billionaire patient was dying before their eyes. Down in the basement, Benjamin's breathing quickened. His hands trembled as he stared at the security monitors. The feed showed the 12th floor, doctors rushing, alarms flashing, controlled chaos collapsing into despair. His voice broke through the hum of the machines. "Dad, that's the person I've been smelling." Gerald looked up in confusion. "Who?" "The man upstairs," Benjamin whispered. "He's dying exactly the way Mom did." The room seemed to freeze. 3 years earlier, Sarah Turner, Gerald's wife and Benjamin's mother, had begged for help in this same hospital. For times she'd come, describing unbearable pain, and 4 times they'd sent her home. One doctor, Richard Hayes, had written drug-seeking behavior in her chart. 18 hours later, she died screaming from a rare condition no one had thought to test for: acute intermittent porphyria, a disease so rare it occurred in only 1 in 100,000 people. Benjamin had never cried at her funeral. Instead, he'd studied. Every night, every discarded textbook, every research file he could find. He'd memorized her symptoms, her charts, the autopsy report. He had made himself a promise: never again. Now, watching the billionaire's body convulse on the 12th floor, Benjamin knew the pattern. The same smell, the same signs. His mother's disease was back, only this time, the victim was one of the richest men in the country. "I have to go up there," Benjamin said suddenly. "I know what's wrong. They're treating him for everything but the right thing." Gerald hesitated. The 12th floor wasn't for men like them. But his son's certainty was unshakable. Together they ran to the elevator, Benjamin clutching his notebook like a lifeline. The badge barely granted access beyond the 11th floor, but the doors opened anyway, almost as if fate itself wanted them through. They stepped out into blinding fluorescent light and collided with the man Gerald least wanted to see, Dr. Richard Hayes, the same physician who had dismissed Sarah as hysterical. His tone was ice. "You work in the basement, Turner. What are you doing here?" Before Gerald could answer, Benjamin whispered, "They won't believe me, Dad. They never do." Hayes sneered, glancing at the trembling boy. "Your son? The one who dropped out of school? You expect me to believe he knows something I don't?" Inside the glass room, Charles Whitfield was seizing violently, his skin gray, lips purple, the sound of machines shrieking like mechanical screams. 15 doctors shouted over one another, their expertise unraveling. Benjamin pressed closer to the glass, his voice barely audible but unwavering. "I've seen this before," he murmured. "That color, that movement, it's visceral neuropathic pain. His urine is dark, port wine color. That's not blood. It's porphobilinogen. He's dying of acute intermittent porphyria." For a heartbeat, silence filled the hall. Hayes froze. "What did you say?" Benjamin's gaze never wavered. "And you're giving him barbiturates. Every dose is killing him faster." The words hung in the air like a lightning strike. The man who had once ignored his mother's cries was now standing before the son who knew more than any of them. Hayes's confidence cracked. "That's impossible," he whispered. Benjamin opened his notebook with shaking hands, revealing a worn memo bearing a corporate logo and a familiar signature, Charles Whitfield's. "Project terminated. ROI negative." It was the research that could have saved Sarah Turner's life. The same man dying beyond the glass had buried the cure. "Dad," Benjamin said quietly, "we can still save him." The sterile air of the 12th floor felt electric with fear. Monitors screamed as the billionaire's body arched violently on the bed, his skin an unnatural gray, his lips blue-black. Doctors shouted over each other, their authority dissolving into panic. 15 specialists. 0 answers. Then, through the doorway, a boy stepped forward. A 13-year-old in a worn hoodie, clutching a notebook filled with trembling handwriting. The same boy the head nurse had called trash. Dr. Hayes, his pride already cracking, opened the door and motioned Benjamin inside. For the first time, the walls between the basement and the 12th floor disappeared. Every eye in the room turned toward the child who didn't belong. Benjamin didn't hesitate. He studied the patient like a scientist, methodical and calm in the chaos. His voice, soft but certain, broke through the noise. "Port wine urine, photosensitivity, peripheral seizures. This isn't poisoning. It's acute intermittent porphyria. And you're giving him phenobarbital and morphine, both trigger the enzyme collapse. Every dose you give him is killing him faster." The doctors froze. One resident stammered, "That's impossible," but Dr. Hayes checked the records. His face went pale. "He's right. The patient crashed exactly when we started the phenobarbital." Benjamin pointed to the 4. "Stop all barbiturates. Stop the morphine. He needs hemin, 3 milligrams per kilogram, intravenously. It's the only antidote that can stop the porphyrin cascade." "We don't stock it," another doctor said. "Yes, you do," Benjamin countered instantly. "Penhematin, pharmacy stock number 313 milligrams per vial." Hayes barked into his phone. "Check inventory now." Moments later, the call came back, 6 vials available. The room erupted into motion. Nurses sprinted. Lights dimmed. Gerald handed his son a UV flashlight from his security belt. Benjamin held it against the urine bag, and under the black light, the liquid glowed neon pink. The room fell silent. Proof. The rarest diagnosis confirmed by a child. "Start the infusion now," Hayes ordered, "or this man dies in under a minute." The amber liquid flowed into the billionaire's veins. Monitors steadied. His breathing slowed. Color crept back into his skin. And for the first time that night, silence meant life. The boy everyone had dismissed, the son of a black security guard the child doctors had ignored, had done what 15 experts could not. He had saved a billionaire's life. Hours later, Charles Whitfield awoke to sterile light and the quiet hum of survival. His mind struggled to piece together what had happened, the gala, the pain, the darkness, and then the faces around his bed came into focus. 15 doctors stood silent. Beside them, a young boy in a worn hoodie and a man in a security uniform. "That's Benjamin Turner and his father, Gerald," Dr. Hayes explained softly. "Your life belongs to them now." Whitfield blinked in disbelief. "A child saved me." "Yes," Hayes said, "when 15 of us couldn't." Benjamin's small, trembling hands held out a folded memo, the same document he'd pulled from hospital trash years ago. Whitfield recognized his own signature instantly. Project terminated. Market too small. ROI negative. The same research that could have saved Benjamin's mother. The same disease that had nearly killed him tonight. His voice cracked. Where did you get this? Benjamin's tone was calm, almost detached. From your company's waste bin. My mother died because of this decision. The room fell utterly silent. Whitfield looked down, shame carving deep lines into his face. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to kill her, Benjamin interrupted quietly. You just didn't care enough to save her. Those words landed heavier than any accusation. Yet the boy's eyes held no hatred, only the weary clarity of someone who had learned forgiveness the hard way. My mother taught me every life has value. Even yours, Benjamin added. I didn't save you because you deserved it. I saved you because she would have wanted me too. At 2:30 a.m. on Christmas morning, Charles Whitfield picked up his phone and began calling his board of directors. Emergency meeting, 6 a.m., he ordered. We're changing everything. By dawn, the Sarah Turner Rare Disease Fund was born, $50 million annually, no profit requirements. Alongside it, the Benjamin Turner Medical Scholarship, dedicated to students who learn differently, who see patterns others miss. And for Benjamin himself, full access to every buried research file the company had ever discarded. Years later, the boy, once dismissed as broken, became the youngest recipient of the Lasker Prize for Medical Innovation. His work saved thousands, gave hope to the forgotten, and rewrote how medicine saw difference. For Sarah Turner, who cleaned floors but raised a genius. For Gerald, who learned that being different is not the same as being broken. And for every patient told they're too rare to matter, you do matter. You are seen. You are valued.